Hey friend, welcome to the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I'm your host, Emily Nichols. As a Whole30 certified coach, wife, busy working boy mom, and your self-care guru, I'm here to help you start putting yourself first without the guilt. Each week you'll hear motivating and practical tips on how you can create a habit of self-care through interviews with my amazing guests or quick solo episodes with me. After each episode, you'll walk away with an action plan and feel empowered to implement what you have learned into your life. So grab a cup of coffee, glass of wine, or your favorite sparkling water, and let's do this. Hey, welcome back to the show. You're listening to episode 29 of the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I hope you all had a wonderful Valentine's Day with your loved ones. My husband was out of the country all last week for work, and he actually got back on Valentine's Day. So we just had a nice little dinner at home with the kids and did like chocolate covered strawberries and watched a movie, which was actually really, really perfect. But when thinking about this Quickie episode, I thought it was very timely to talk about love. And not just the love you have for others, but self-love. Obviously, this show is called the Self-Care Isn't Selfish podcast because I want to give you tangible tips to incorporate self-care into your life. It's been life-changing for me. The physical acts of doing these things just make me feel my best. So self-care is the actual actions you take. However, if you don't have any love for yourself, a lot of these actions are meaningless, right? You're just checking off boxes on a to-do list pretty much. Like, yep, I worked out, I did this, I did that. You know, Emily said we have to do this for my self-care checklist. But are you really feeling the benefits of your self-care checklist? You know, are you doing them out of love for yourself? Are you doing them because someone else told you to? Like I've mentioned a couple of times, self-care is really having a moment right now, and I think it's fantastic and a way for us to really put ourselves first, fill our cups up. But don't do it so empty. Do it with intention and with love behind it. So let's talk about self-love a little bit more and some ways you can love yourself a little bit more. You know, I think self-love, it's very emotional. It's the emotional part of your self-care checklist. It's loving yourself unapologetically. And I know I've struggled with this plenty of times in the past. You know, sometimes my husband will listen to a show and he'll be like, man, you gave really great advice, or your guest did. I think you need to put that into practice, because I am my own worst critic. You know, sometimes I talk negatively about myself, or I don't have enough confidence in myself to do something. You know, I got cellulite like a lot of other people do, and I just turn around, look in the mirror, and I'm like, ugh. But, you know, God created us all in the image of Him, and we should love ourselves. Not to get too religious on you, but that's the way I know I personally need to see my body and love myself for who I am. So think of it this way. Are you being your own worst critic as well? Are you talking negatively about yourself? We've said this numerous times on the show. The way we talk to ourselves and criticize ourselves, we would never talk to a loved one the way we talk to ourselves. So change the script. When something negative comes into your mind, flip it around and say something positive to yourself instead. It's a habit you'll have to grow. Number two, just be okay with where you are. You know, I feel like I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I have to just be okay where I am and see where this journey takes me. And that kind of takes me into the third thing I want you to think about is stop comparing yourself to others. I mean, with this social media world, you see people posting all of these Instagram beautiful, worthy pictures and, you know, showing, oh, for Valentine's Day, we went and did this and that. And oh my gosh, it was just the most magnificent day. And you just can't compare yourself to others, because their life, or at least what they're showing as their life, is not yours. Okay, so just stop comparing, because when you're always looking to someone else and thinking, oh, I wish I had what they had, you're not being thankful and grateful for what you are. And just have some compassion for yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. You know, we all have our good days and bad days, and that's okay. We all have our negative moments, and we all have our positive moments, and that's okay. Give yourself a little bit of grace and stop being so hard on yourself. And lastly, just be present. In this busy world we are living in, it's really hard to be present. We've talked about this with Dr. Stacy Bloomy before about, doing these actions and these habits and how they're actually not working for you because you aren't present. You aren't in the moment. So I want you to think about this the next time you're trying to do some of the things on your self-care checklist. Why are you doing these things? We want you to do them out of love for yourself. So, for example, when I pray or meditate in the morning, I'm like, this is a form of love. It clears my mind. It connects me to God. It makes me feel amazing versus scrolling on my phone and having that bright light and letting other emails and social media posts take control of my morning. That's not as loving, in my opinion. Then I usually go and do some type of movement. Working out in the morning is my favorite thing. If I'm doing it to punish my body because I ate too many cookies the day before, or if I'm moving it because it is like my own spiritual therapy and movement and connection with other people, that sounds way better, doesn't it? That's the intention behind it for me. And then coming home and just chugging water and drinking coffee, that ritual for me is everything as part of my morning to the last thing I do before I get myself and my kids ready in the morning. And I drink all the water because it makes me feel good. And I drink the coffee because it makes me feel good too. And I love the taste of it. If you're just going through the motions though, and not having any attention and love behind it, it's meaningless. So maybe sit down this week as you're going through your self-care checklist, write down a few things that you're doing and why you're doing them. Okay? The why behind you're doing everything is everything. And like I mentioned before, if you don't have self-love attached to each of these self-care activities, they're not going to be as impactful in your life and life-changing as I talk about my self-care routine than if you just did it. Okay, you have to have your why and love for yourself. And this is a habit you have to build up over time, loving yourself, because there's maybe been quite a number of years where you haven't been so nice to yourself. So during this time of year, when we're thinking about Valentine's Day and loving everyone else, I want you to love yourself first and really think about this episode throughout the week as you're going about your self-care checklist. So gang, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you would be so kind to leave a rating and review in iTunes, I would love it. It helps make the show a lot easier to find. And also hop on over to Emily Nichols Tutu or at Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast to see behind the scene things of some things. Can I say things anymore? See behind the scenes stuff of what's going on. I have an announcement coming up in just a couple of weeks of some new initiatives I'm rolling out to you all, and I can't wait to share it with you. So thank you again for listening. I love you all, and you know what? I love myself too. So have a great week, and I'll catch you next week. And remember, self-care isn't selfish. Bye.